Hi,
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Nyesha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
All right, my friends, once again, it is indeed time to get our talk on. This morning, talk with me, your host, J. Stan McCauley, along with the champions of talk. This morning, talk champion in the house. Special guest, none other than the one and only Christopher Dukes. Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
Good morning to you, Brother Stan. Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you here. It's
good.
good to have you here. Welcome. Good morning.
Thank you. We're a little overdue, but the good news is it was worth the wait because we just have far more information to share with our public.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you can make it this morning because I wanted to talk to you about, two things. One, the American Justice Project.
Yes, sir.
And two, which some might contend should be one, your recent victory at the Supreme Court here in the great state of Connecticut. And just the whole package of what it means to be vindicated and to be set to be set free, if one will, because false charges are a public prison, if you will, if that makes any sense. Sir. And I have here in my hands a draft copy of the chokehold from the American Justice Project, which I believe it or not, I talk about this almost every day to different people. And this is like the blueprint for making somebody guilty. And the horrible thing about it is it's used on people who are totally innocent.
Every day, in many factions, not just in the criminal justice system. It's used in human resources. It's used in the Department of Children and Families all across this country.
It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. It's a grave injustice. And, the Bible talks about bearing false witness.
Yes.
And what a horrible, horrible thing that is. So talk a little bit about your experience, a little bit set for those who don't know.
Which experience are we talking about now?
Well, let's do it the old-fashioned way. Okay. First, let's tell us a little bit about who you are. Who is Christopher Duke?
Excellent, and I appreciate that, Stan. Also, so I will be speaking off the cuff. I do have a resume, of course, and bios that are written, and unfortunately, a number of folks got introduced to me through who they said I was versus who I am, right? And so I'm a West Haven native, born Yale New Haven Hospital, grew up in West Haven until I graduated from high school, and then I went on to Central Connecticut State University, pursuing a career in music as well, or a degree in music, I should say, as well as harnessing skills in student affairs. And I became an RA and a resident assistant, for those of you who do not know. And there were just so many skills that were indoctrinated in me during those times. We had an excellent residence life program, student affairs program that was highly admired throughout the country. And I'm glad to have benefited from that. In there, I found not only my voice in terms of music, but I also found the love for justice, a greater love for justice, greater love for gathering people, mobilizing people, training people. You build the skills of, or hone in the skills of, just being empathic, which is missing in so many areas today. Well, moving on, I graduated from CCSU I did start singing professionally throughout. That's how I got my start here in the Hartford region also. People knew me from singing in churches. But continuing with those skills, I fell in love with criminal justice, and I started taking postgraduate classes in criminal justice and enrolled myself into the master's program at Central Connecticut State University. Meanwhile, I continued on through residence life, went on to admissions, where I was involved in the recruitment of future CCSU students. Might as well go back and say I did have a very successful athletic career. Also, again, West Haven athletics, and it certainly saved my life. So I'm proud to say, I'm a Westie, and I'm a Westie strong person. The roots that were ingrained in me in West Haven gave me enough grit to get through what the last 6 years have been for my life as well too. So I do want to pay homage to the city of West Haven, and particularly I must give a shout out to Bert Sicleri, who really I attribute to. Between Bert Sicleri, Lou Negri, these are individuals I must say shaped me musically and athletically to persevere through anything. These are the men who came before me and became a father to me when my own father was absent. I must pay credit to them. When you ask who I am, I have to tell you that part about those individuals. I managed to win several conference titles in the shot put, and I was an all-state shot putter, all-state football player, all-state tenor, all-state bass. So I did have all of these skills, and I don't say it to brag by all means, because they don't just hand these things out.
Right.
You have to work hard in order to achieve these things. One of the best jobs I had growing up, I was a camp counselor, so I worked a lot with kids and other youth and learning a lot of things. Moving on, after working in admissions, I became the first ever African-American to hold the title of Director of Judicial Programs, which eventually became Director of Student Conduct, as our profession evolved away from being less judicial and more focused on the students in itself, in name also. So I conducted more than 20,000 administrative investigations over that time, anything from underage drinking to even one case of attempted murder. So there's a wide variety of cases that I would handle, and I would have to have the training, the knowledge, and the tool set to be able to carry out these deals. Moving forward again, who I am a devout Christian, and I don't waver from that at all. I accept whatever criticism that comes along with that, but that's okay for me because I know who I am, and I know whose I am. And that will never change, no matter what's ever said to me. I will always stay true to my God, my Savior, and I pray that the Holy Spirit remains with me so I can continue on doing what it is that I do. I will pause for a moment just to say, because I always try to take the time to reflect. I've been blessed. So who am I? I'm a person who's been extremely, extremely blessed. I've been blessed with two beautiful children. I won't say their names at this time. My daughter is now 16. My son is 10. And I like the fact that I can make this record for them so that anytime they get a chance to go back and look, they can say, wow, that's our dad. And what our dad did for us, which they still don't know yet, unfortunately, that they'll know that they had a dad that they can look up to. I've been led by the direction of, there was a book that was written back in, I want to say 2011, that I got exposed to called All Pro Dad. And how to be an all pro dad. Tony Dungy, another devout Christian who was involved with helping Rick Merrill formulate this book. And that's a book, one of the books that I live by as a recipe in being a dad. But along the way, I found out, you know what? I don't want to stop at all pro. I want to be a Hall of Fame dad. I'm a Hall of Fame football player out of the New Haven County. I was recognized back in 2015 as a New Haven Gridiron Club Hall of Fame. So when I say all these things, because I'm fully aware of, one, who I am, where I am, and who do I represent. And this is what I used to teach students at CCSU before I was wrongfully terminated from there. is that, and that's who I carry myself. So I'm a member of the Greater Hartford African American Alliance. I recognize that when I do something that's out there, it is a reflection in some way of all. So I try to do what I do with a high level of integrity, honesty, empathy. In terms of what I do, I'm not a rogue individual who just goes off wild, even though those narratives get thrown out to you. So I am here today, fresh out of the fiery furnace. And just like those brothers in the Bible who we knew were in there, the fire didn't get me.
Amen.
Amen?
Amen.
The fire didn't get me. There was so much smoke. And there's still smoke there. And I hope one of the things we can accomplish on our agenda today, which again, this is live radio, so we don't have a set agenda, but I hope we can clear up a lot of that smoke that's still out there. So you mentioned their Supreme Court victory, an amazing victory, a historical victory.
Absolutely.
For the Union. And we, as people, residents of this state, regardless of race and gender, need to hold on to this and remind folks that when they start using the chokehold, one, that we are committed, we're going to end the chokehold, but then two, we're going to use this example of just how common the chokehold is across all the areas. Now, in order for us to get to the Supreme Court, it started back at the first patrolman from the Hartford Police Department to arrive in my home. So we met corruption from the very start all the way up through the Supreme Court. If I may hold up a little prop I have myself.
Yeah.
I have not met this author yet, but I'm looking forward to meeting her. This is Jessica Henry. The book title, Smoke But No Fire. So I apologize on behalf of the level of leadership we have in this state, even though I am a responsible voter, but I will assume responsibility because I don't see any elected official coming to the public and say, we are sorry for putting our silence forward for over 6 years when we knew what was happening to Christopher Dukes and his children. We did nothing. So they're not going to apologize to the public. Let me apologize for you. I'm so sorry that we have the kind of people in office who will know what's going on, who will call themselves champions of domestic violence, champions of constitutional law, so forth, but yet and still, that's all smoke. There's no fire behind that. I'll give you a great example. I presented this case before the entire Black and Puerto Rican caucus.
That's a body of elected officials of black, quote unquote, BIPOC, black and brown people here in the state of Connecticut, who one would think would have the best interests of black people.
Correct. And yet and still, I can't give a reason why, because no one has given me a reason. So I don't want to speculate. That's one thing you'll find with me. I don't like to speculate. I like to have facts.
Right.
And I'll research them. But what I can tell you is that this presentation happened before this body. It's not the first time. I have been petitioning for years out in front of the state capitol. I'm going to give another shout out to an individual from ACLU Smart Justice. His name is William Stevenson. And the reason why I believe I need to give him that shout out is because he schooled me on how to be effective at the Capitol. And so I give a shout out to Will. This is another thing. I want to give people their flowers while they're here, by all means. Will Stevenson, I appreciate you for telling me how I should be handling myself, where I should place myself, what handouts should I be giving these folks, and how frequently I need to be able to come out. So I appreciate that, Will. I stood out in front of the door that there's no way the governor could enter the building, the lieutenant governor could enter the building without seeing me and seeing my exhibits of all the evidence that was, or at least the primary evidence that was responsible for freeing me, and to have no response. But I had to do that. That was a divine intervention. That was a divine mission for me. Was, I think, again, I say I'm in good company. I'm not Jesus Christ, my Lord, but I have walked in similar ways, and I've experienced betrayal. I've experienced ridicule. I've experienced doubt. Some of the closest people in the last 6 years that came along, people who knew this case very well, for whatever reason, still elected to, we're going to stab this person in the back, and we're going to do this publicly so that everybody knows, and so forth. And now we're at this point, we're talking about all this smoke that they threw, pretty much doing the work of the power structure for themselves. This Supreme Court ruling really tells a lot of people in so many ways, it's time for you to pack it in. I'm being very nice with what I'm saying right now. I think the ruling says a lot more than that. But again, still trying to stay true to who I am. But again, as you can see, I'm human too. I have feelings as well too. I do get angry as well too. I'm angry right now as we sit here. However, I am blessed with the peace to still maintain my self-control, my perseverance, and my abdominal spirit. So I like to lean on that. So I'm going to shut up for a second because I know I said a lot, Stan. I'll give you a chance to ask.
No. I'm one of those talk hosts. And I believe that the person that should talk the most is the person who's here to talk.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to help shepherd that information and be the eyes and ears of the viewer.
Right.
One thing that I couldn't help but take away, you talked about, some of the heroes, if you will, in your life, and the stalwartness of these individuals. But your background in sports.
Yes.
And what it takes to be, what it takes to win.
Yes.
Which is different from being a winner, what it takes to be a winner.
Yes.
And what it takes to be the best, and the tenacity.
Yes.
And I can't help but come away with the idea, the notion that with that and your faith, you were able to bear under the weight of this pressure. And the reason that I think it's very important that you took the time to give the background, and the reason I'm focusing on this is because of the chokeholds, and you've mentioned them several times. There's 16 of them, and one is enough to bring it down. Let alone when they start piling them on, and they pile them on because their effort is. And I don't see this as an effort for justice. It's almost an effort for one runaway ego on the part of those in power. I consider it a blatant abuse of power, where they use their authority to crush an individual, not because the individual did anything wrong,
right,
but because they've been chosen to crush them in their minds. And also the other takeaway I got is that even though there is corruption, and make no mistake about it, my friends, there's a lot of corruption out there. But if you have faith in the system and allow the system to work, vindication comes. Because the corrupt system yielded a victory for you in the end from the highest court in the state.
Correct.
And your faith brought you to that, just like it would in a football game or in a championship field competition.
Correct.
And the tenacity and the stick-to-itiveness that is necessary for such a victory. Because in the end, the victory is what stands. You won.
Correct. And there is no appeal from that, right?
The Supreme Court of the state of Connecticut has vindicated you.
Yes, sir. And if we can, on that moment, if anyone reads the decision, what I hope the takeaway is that there is a lot of confusion amongst the justices themselves in their writing. Now, I think some of the confusion that's in writing is intentional. What I mean by that is I believe that there are justices who are being extremely careful and not being straightforward and blunt, because there is more talk about the accusations that were made against me, and there's less talk about the constitutional rights that protected my behavior, my actual behavior, not my alleged behavior. So again, in the decision and in a majority of the writings post the decision has been focused on the accusations as if this event just happened yesterday. Whereas over the past 6 years, I've been able to successfully dismantle every single accusation to prove them false. Mm-hmm. And the first domino of the fall was the criminal justice system. The state attorney's office was crippled by the evidence that we brought forward. There was no way they could rehabilitate their lying witness. The witness who made the false 911 call and laid out the fact that she had been a victim of domestic violence, being held against her will, restrained with duct tape, beaten, dragged up and down 76 stairs, strangled to the point where she vomited all over the basement floor. So I'll stop there with those accusations. Because when we talk about no smoke but no fire, if anyone just heard those lists of accusations and then they find out that I'm vindicated at the state Supreme Court, there's your confusion. And why are people so confused is because the chokehold was used. The judicial folks don't want to admit that it was used. Anytime when the accusations don't line up with the outcomes, that right there is a great indicator that something has gone horribly wrong. I think. Go ahead.
Well. I really want to drill down and focus on the term and the word accusation, and you mentioned constitution.
Yes.
First and foremost, you're innocent.
Yes.
Until proven guilty. An accusation is not guilt.
It's not a crime.
It's not an
offense.
Right. So, but they're treating it as though they've already made the judgment. Well, you've been accused, and the chokehold works so well because society has embraced the accusation.
Yes.
And it's a horrible state of being where you have to. Anyone can accuse anyone of anything at any time. And because you've been accused of it,
right,
you're somehow guilty. And I can understand to a certain degree the court of public opinion that believes, a cheeseburger is $1.50 because they saw it on a 30-second commercial.
Right.
But the court and the policing apparatus who are responsible, the legislative processors, the electeds who are sworn to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the laws, those laws patently say you are innocent.
Correct.
And they've treated you as though you've been guilty from day one.
Correct. And I can tell you that as a citizen of the United States, I can't think of a time that I've been more disgusted in our judicial system, because the judicial system that I just went through and that many others go through is not the judicial system that I learned about in my graduate program. It's not. However, the career path moving forward is let's teach people about what's really happening. And hence, this is what we're talking about with the chokehold in itself. Guilt by accusation is the first element of the chokehold that we identified. Wow. And before we continue with the chokehold, I need to pay homage to Professor Paul Butler. Paul Butler is the author of Chokehold, Policing Black Men in America. I believe I got that second part right. But Paul Butler is the individual who inspired me once I read what he went through and inspired me. Let's take this a step further. He's done the research. It's all here. Now it's time for some applied research. Now, mind you, Stan, AJP, American Justice Project, was born out of my marathon seeking help within the state. And I'll take the ownership on, I didn't find the help that I was looking for, and I'll take that ownership because I put an expectation out there that help was going to be readily available. I had reason to believe, and others do, because the first thing people ask me, hey, did you call this such and such group? Did you call this group? After all, they've been around for over 50 years helping Black Americans. Have you talked to this group? And sadly, I did. And what I found that it was, I think I would have gotten a better response seeking advocacy and help and empathy from a white supremacist group than I would have going to my own people in some cases. And I don't say that as a dig to them, and people can take that because I did do something about it. Instead of sitting back and complaining about them, we created American Justice Project.
I love it.
We created American Justice Project to make sure that those who are marginalized, those who are deemed voiceless, those who are suffering from the chokehold, we have a remedy for you. And we can put, and the best part is that we do it for free. We don't make you jump through hoop after hoop after hoop. We don't care what your gender is, what your sexual preference is. We don't care what religion you are. We don't care if you are atheist. So our issue is justice comes first. And so if we look at even our Supreme Court justices, the makeup of the court, what this shows us is that we spent so much time focusing on diversity. And then go back to something that you said before, too. And I think we missed the mark because we do have diversity. We may have racial diversity. We may have gender diversity. However, as you say often, this is still a plantation. And one of the most horrific things that can happen on a plantation is an enslaved individual being whipped. Now, I don't know because I've never been whipped like that. But the point is, does it matter the race or gender of the person holding the whip?
No.
I don't think so. And so the issue is we have a system in place. A lot of folks will say it was designed to do, or it's doing exactly what it was designed to do. Earlier, you were making a reference about power, and I said this is still about power and who has it. Now, the power should be with the people. We are the people. We are the ones who elect folks. We are the ones right now. I saw someone campaigning in the last week to be reelected, and this individual has known about my case for over 4 years, has not made one phone call to aid me and my children. And I'm thinking, how do you have the audacity to move forward in this pursuit, knowing that you've turned your back on families? And it just, again, one of the elements of AJP is really creating transparency and accountability. So we're going to be very transparent about what happened in this case. So we talk about, let me just continue walking through it because I think I did pay homage to Paul Butler, whom I also have not had the chance to meet yet in person. He and I exchanged emails, I want to say about 3.5 to 4 years ago. I let him know what was going on. And I believe the sentiment was, good luck and, keep me posted. And so I will. So if I look at the first header of the chokehold, and this is why we did this. We did this so that it could be easily accessible, and it's accessible on our webpage right now. So if you were to go to AmericanJusticeProject.org and you were to look at our work, you will see a web page. There's a site on our location that's called Chokehold, and you can read up about it. You can do your own self-assessment. And another thing, Stan, when you say you talk about this every day, what I enjoy is that's right. This is a tool. So when people are understanding what happened to them or what's happening to them in the present, they actually have a tool to look at and say, I get it. So on the website, when you hover over one of these icons, it'll give you a written description of what that icon means, what it represents. So then you can truly understand. And you can do this in the privacy of your home without having to contact one of us to decode anything for you. It's right there. So guilt by accusation. A 911 call was placed. And because of who called and what was said, guilt by accusation was already in place. Before anyone started collecting evidence or so forth, guilt was already assigned because of the race and gender of the caller, the race and the gender of the accused. So we have a problem here in Hartford. I can only speak to Hartford at the moment because this is where I was. I'm sure it's other places as well. But these officers took what was said to them, hook, line, and sinker, and accepted it. I think a very key important, which it still leaves to confusion for everyone else. I had 9 to 10, I believe it was 10 phone calls with the Hartford police during a time that they are alleging there was a armed police standoff. Okay. I had 10 phone calls with him. Only 1 is recorded. Why? Why are the other 9 not recorded? I guarantee if any of those 9 had me say, I'm sorry I kidnapped, I'm sorry I assaulted, I'm sorry, if an officer comes in this house, I'm going to kill them. Those recordings would be here.
Absolutely.
Right? Those recordings show they were not dealing with a drunk man. They were not dealing with a suicidal man. They were not dealing with someone who's confessing to committing crimes whatsoever. And that's why they're not here. Right? And let's talk about what the Attorney General's office did with the one recording they had. They took 2 separate statements, split them in half, and paired them together. Statements that happened probably about 6 minutes apart from each other. And there's been no accountability for that. So it shows that even though God is doing the work, the devil is still very busy.
Always.
The devil is in those details, making sure that they can secure the devil's narrative. And that's exactly what this Attorney General's office, under the leadership of William Tong, has been doing. They took a comment. I told you, you've heard me say the word, I think, at least twice about empathy or empathic. I was concerned for my beautiful babies upstairs. The perspective that has never come out is that a father who had just bathed his son, put his son to bed, a father who had just made a sandwich for his daughter who was returning from an ER visit. She had on a knee immobilizer and she had on crutches. She sat down at the table, she had her sandwich, and that her father said goodnight to her and watched her walk up the stairs with the help of her mother, because her mother needed to undress her because she was in a knee brace, right? And for that to be the last time I see my children for a 10-month period or hear anything from them, with the exception of when I knew things were going wrong and we were in danger, I checked on my children, made sure they were safe, which is a safety protocol I have for our house. My children were safe. I moved to another location in a home and I called police immediately. Why? Because my training in threat assessment involves de-escalation as well. And I needed to start de-escalating this matter because it seemed to me that police had already escalated. And how do I know? It's just by the vehicles that I saw on the street. A fire truck blocked in front of my neighbor's house had me concerned that something's wrong at my neighbor's house. I had no reason to believe anything was wrong at my house. Right? And so then once I saw their mother talking to a Hartford police cruiser that just pulled up and pointing at the house, that's when I said something I won't say on radio. I won't use any radio. But I knew at that point in time I was being set up for something dangerous. Again, it's about the tool set of what I had prior to that 911 call. All these skills that I had. There were several of us at the university who were trained by Marissa Randazzo from the United States Secret Service. She trained us on threat assessment. There was training on run, hide, fight that I had taken the training so much that I became a facilitator at CCSU and trained people on when there's an active shooter situation or dangerous situation involving a gun, how you take actions. The only person, I think 2 people, Cornell Lewis, another individual who I have to pay homage to. Cornell Lewis, I thank you for your steadfast support. Everything that you have done to help me and my children reunite. Everything you've done to help clear up all this smoke and show that the true fire lied with us. And so I appreciate your brotherhood and your continued support as well. Cornell Lewis, I believe, wrote an article in the Inquiring News pointing out all this. Ann Gottingen from the Hartford News. Ann took this situation up. She did her research. She looked at all the information. She was appalled by it. And she has written now, her 5th or 6th installment in the Hartford News. And I thank you for this as well, because you are showing us that media does not need to be manipulated. And media, true media, is extremely helpful for the community. So thank you, Ann, for your contributions to justice, not injustice, right?
Amen.
So again, now once I am... my house is surrounded. I don't know how surrounded, because I'm under the impression if I even pick out the blinds, pow, there goes Chris. Okay? I also was fully aware of that at that time, constitutional law comes forth. The Second Amendment provides all of us with the ability to arm ourselves, be in possession of firearms. However, using the chokehold theory, using the Earl Hutchinson, the destruction of the black male, the assassination of the black male image, for some reason, when you hear that a black man has a firearm, it changes the whole perspective. It's never thought of, what is that man doing good? For me, it shows this is how serious I am of making sure that my family is safe in an environment where people do burglarize homes. People do, they don't come in for just a cup of sugar. They cause serious damage to folks. And I want myself and the mother of my children to have the ability to defend themselves in the home, even with a firearm, if the situation arose. So their mother was trained in shooting. Their mother had access to all the firearms. So at any point in time, this mother ever experienced domestic violence or so forth, she had the means and the capabilities of ending it, regardless of who the offender was.
To protect herself.
Herself. In fact, she had the biggest weapon with the most capacity purchased specifically for her in the event somehow something happened to me. She was home by herself. And funny, the Hartford police never talk about this. 2 months before her 911 call, it's exactly what she had to do. I was in Florida, Jacksonville, Florida, at a conference, and a disgruntled former CCSU student who was recently expelled came to my home, was pounding on the door, terrifying her and the children. What did she do? She executed the plan that the media doesn't want you to know about. She executed the plan by 1, securing the children, 2, arming herself, 3, calling the police, which is the same procedures that I went through that night, but they won't talk about that.
Well, see, it's interesting because as you mentioned earlier about the plantation.
Yes.
And it's subtle, but at the same time it isn't.
Right.
If you know what you're looking for. See, everyone can protect themselves except those who've been subjugated on the plantation.
Yes.
See, you don't have arms and guns to protect yourself. You have arms and guns for uprisings. So whenever you hear about people wanting to protect themselves, the narrative comes, well, we don't need guns, or we should just rely on. Well, no. The only place that you hear that is in an urban environment where the subjugated are expected to always be submissive and to kowtow to authorities that abuse and misuse their power and position.
Right.
And it's just an interesting, because our time is winding down. I'm thinking to myself as you're going on, I'm like, I don't know if I've allotted enough time for this.
Yeah.
We actually have to do like 2 or 3 more parts.
Okay. Yeah.
Because this has chapters.
Yes.
And it's important for people to understand what this is and how it has yet to fully unfold.
Correct.
It's almost like instead of going into the store and asking to speak to the clerk, on your way into the store, you talk to the CEO. The clerk just doesn't know it yet.
Right.
And they're giving you a hard time to receive what the CEO has already told you can have. And that's kind of what the Supreme Court has done.
Yes.
They have said, they've set the standard for which there is no appeal.
Right.
So now what do all the other knuckleheads that were trying to get in the way?
Right.
Because they're protecting a system.
Yes.
Not finding justice for those who own the system.
And if I may, there were so many layers of people before it got to the court who could have fixed it, and they elected not to. And if I may, with the plantation part, is what happens is similar to, I was just writing a synopsis on, we have an initiative that we're putting forward, and I'll explain that momentarily, is that one of the first things they do to you, besides all the brutality, that happens to you, is they strip your name and they strip your identity. So I thank you for allowing me to actually say, who am I? Who is Christopher Dukes? And what you allowed me to establish my name and my identity. So thank you, Stan, for that. But see, in this process, what they did was my name was used, but my identity became wife beating, kidnapper, armed standoff with police. And that's the persona that they put out there. That's who this guy is versus who I really am, who I've always been, who I've been throughout this whole process. Is the Christopher Dukes that folks have known since kindergarten, high school, college, or so forth, who has never been synonymous. My name has never been synonymous with kidnapping, domestic violence, and aggression towards police. Never. But yet and still, if you compile the mainstream media, they will say, this is who this guy is. Oh, that's the guy who did this to his wife. That's the guy who did that. But I am standing tall today to say, the same way in the iconic role in Roots, Alex Haley's Roots, Kunta Kinte was being beaten, whip, and continue to be whipped. Why? Because he would not allow them to strip his name. My name is Kunta Kinte, right? Instead, he was like, your name is Toby. My name is Kunta Kinte. Your name is Toby, right? And in the same way that happened, being broken down in front of your people until the fact that you are choked out, that whipping is the same thing as the chokehold. The difference is it's not only applied to the enslaved, right? This applies to whites, Asians, men, women, transgender folks. This applies that folks are being choked out in their jobs. People are being whipped. And what my message is, and I'll close, I think we are out of time right now, is it is time for people to stand up the way Kunta Kinte did. It is time for people to stand up and say, I am not your Toby. Be who you are. Be your name. And as Dr. Yusuf Salam has encouraged me to do, live out your name. Go find out your name. And moving forward until the next time we come back and pick this up again, remember, you're not anybody's Toby. Not your Toby is the American Justice Initiative that we're putting forward. Thank you.
I love that. What are you doing next Tuesday morning?
Be here. Let me
check your calendar. Well, we'll book him while he's still here.
Sorry, I knocked the mic out of the way. We have to wait and see because, as we say, I actually might be returning to CCSU at that point in time. I don't know yet, but now,
if you don't have to go to work,
I will be here,
which is great. That's fabulous.
Which is great.
Okay, one way or the other, we'll do a part 2. So we can drill down, and I will call chapter 1, Who is Christopher Duke? And chapter 2 will be expanding on the chokeholds.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Our guest this morning, Christopher Dukes, and his victory as we chip away at the abuse of power that goes on and the so-called electeds that say they represent you but don't. Folks, it's your government, and so you have to keep control of it by making sure that you actively participate, as Brother Chris has done. Sometimes you have to get in and get down in the dirt to make sure that it's running right. And they'll do everything they can to keep you out. And that's what the chokehold is designed to do. So stick and stay. We'll do another part of this, and we'll see you on the other side. Bye-bye. Thanks, Brother Chris.
Excellent.